Okay, here we are with our final installment of the Big Four. Keith Bontrager, the granddaddy.
Hey, no.
This is a big deal to be able to sit with KB. Anyway, so Keith Bontrager, for people who don't know the name, early roots, as we've talked about with Jim, you know, he started off, you'll find out, he was a bicycle guy when he became a motorcycle guy, but, you know, motocross was a big deal about what his earliest beginnings were, and then slowly but surely, when I was at Mountain Bike Action in '86, you know, and then we first saw this composite fork that he made that kind of like was just like game changer, you know, because like all we had on mountain bikes back then was just these spindly little steel forks that just didn't do anything, and then the composite fork shows up, and then Tongate comes out with a switchblade, which is was that a deal with you guys? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then of course the famous frame maker, AKA Keith Bontrager, and then this is where it came from. So the dumpster diving to the Tour de France was sort of as really an ode to Keith's legacy, because it started off as I hope he's going to tell the story about dumpster diving, that from his earliest beginnings that created Bontrager Cycling, the industry, the company as that. And then next thing you know, after Trek purchases Bontrager in '93, '94, his name becomes like the household product for wheels, helmets, for virtually like everything. And then here's, you know, Lance and the whole teams in after Lance, Bontrager wheels, you know, and all these Bontrager parts. And so that was really the impetus for the theme we came up with, dumpster diving to the Tour de France, which really kind of explains this, you know, this wide expanse of cycling knowledge, passion, and history. So Keith Bontrager, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, man.
Let's just start off with the beginning. Is that whole mythological story true about that you get your earliest beginnings was stealing rims from Specialized to re-roll them in 26 inches?
I wouldn't have called it stealing.
Yeah, borrowing.
Exactly. A friend of mine, George Slough, who Jim Gentis, I'm sure, knows from San Jose. I used to go over to his place and buy parts, and he had a bunch of used rims or what seemed like used rims, and he said, well, I get those out of the dumpster at Specialized, and I bought a couple of them from him for my bikes.
And they were road rims, though. Right?
Road rims,
yeah.
like old French road rims. And I had a pile of those laying around, and he charged me like $1 each, because he said, these aren't good, they won't work. And that's, you know, Specialized had gotten them back from a dealer or something like that, and just threw them out in the trash. And so those were what were laying around the house when I decided to try to cut one down. And the only reason, being cheap and poor, that I could do that was because I'd only paid $1 for it. So It didn't work. It's no big deal. And that worked out.
So just take it. Were there Wyman rims originally?
No, they were
or just some
Super
other?
Champion.
Oh, okay.
And eventually Mavic, but Super Champion rims were cool because they just had simple pins, steel pins at the joint. Mm-hmm. So you could pull them apart, then roll them around to a smaller size, cut them carefully, and push them back together with the original pins.
And then your notion at the time was to do a rim, what were you trying to achieve with that rolled rim?
Lightweight.
So it was lighter weight?
Yeah, we were riding Araya 7X rims at the time, and those were, you know, they were okay, single wall, you know, but you could do a lot better with a lighter rim.
Yeah, and super narrow, obviously, back those rims.
Yeah, and that actually was a problem. I didn't really know much about how tires and rims work together.
Yeah.
But we were riding skinny tires back then too, 1.75s.
Right.
Fine to race with.
So, what year about was that? You were borrowing rims from.
Do you know how old I am? How hard it is to remember all this stuff? I would say
80s.
I was married in '79, and this was happening a little bit after that, so early '80s.
Yeah. Okay. And after your foray in Europe, smoking pot with Jim Pomeroy.
It was hash.
Okay.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah. So early '80s. For all you Jim Pomeroy fans, that's a whole other story. But anyways, so then was the rims like, but you told me you were already even when you were working at Fox. You were riding a bicycle to Fox. I mean, you were already into bicycles to some degree.
I started commuting to work at Fox when I worked at Fox on a bike, and that was the beginning of my cycling.
Yeah. And then the thing I actually just found out too was just in terms of you actually went to UC Santa Cruz was it a physics major?
Yeah.
And did you graduate with that? Or was like
I didn't graduate. I made a deal with myself and took a graduate class in advanced dynamics because there was a teacher there that I really wanted to learn from, and was going to finish the degree later.
Yeah.
Never did.
Okay.
It worked out.
So you start off with rims. What time would you start building frames?
The first thing I did was frames.
Oh, before the wheels even?
Yeah.
Ah,
yeah.
cheers. Okay.
And I'd been building frames for, I don't know, 5 years or something.
Oh,
like
really?
that by then? 4 years, something like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like the same, how different were they from what we became famous for in terms of the privateer or the road bike?
Pretty different. At first they were, pretty similar to the other brazed frames at the time. And it took a little while to get to start TIG welding them. But I realized from working on motorcycles that TIG welding would be a fine way to connect the tubes together. And then while I was at UCSC, I studied the metallurgy of joints and the impact of the heat required to do the joinery, and realized that you could make it a much better joint if you TIG welded it, not just as good.
And road frames first?
A road frame was the first thing I built for myself, and then I built a mountain bike, the second frame.
Wow.
And I made track frames for customers at Slough's Bike Shop, San Jose Bike Club. So it was just like, I was a frame builder, I'd make anything.
Sure.
So by mid to late 80s, you have rims, you're already doing frames, and then composite fork comes out late 80s.
Yeah.
And then this thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did with Kestrel and the Nitro, and then a little bit about also with with Paul?
Kestrel had started up down in Watsonville, and they were working with Brent Trimble, who was the guy who came up with the idea originally. Bevel Hogg was from Trek, so he had his start with carbon then. Bevel and Tom French asked me to do some just simple consulting work for him, and I did the geometry and the basic shape for the 200 SC frames that they did. There was the one after the 4000, I think they called it, the aerodynamic frame that Trimble designed. And then I ended up being kind of a consultant for them off and on. I never got paid, but that was okay because I was getting experience in areas that I'd never really would ever have a chance to be involved in. And they set me up with Tanguay for the deal with the switchblades.
Yeah.
They inspired me to get a patent on that fork, which worked. So they called me up one day and said, "Come down, we want you to check this thing out." And this guy had brought a bike there for them to look at. And it was a suspension bike, but it just had a rear suspension, no front suspension. And it was just like a garage door spring kind of thing, So basically it was a bike you could ride where the back wheel moved.
Yeah.
And they were riding it around in a construction site, across the street from where they were. And they said, "This thing's really cool." And I rode around on it and I said, this isn't very cool. But I've got this guy that I work by, who I've known for a long time, and we race motorcycles together for a long time. And you should let us build you a suspension bike. And you should let us do something for you because we could do something. We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
We could do something that'd be a lot better than this. And so Paul Turner and I built them a prototype.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
That was that bike. They paid us $600. We did it in two months.
You finally got paid, bud.
We got paid. Actually, the Tonga deal was really good, so they more than made up for that. But we showed it at Long Beach, I think, in 88, yeah. And that was I designed and built the frame out of aluminum, and they skinned it with carbon. And the shock didn't work, but I made it look like it would work. And I'd been building the crown, so that was the same crown as the fork, the composite fork. And Paul made all the little internal doodads for the fork, so that you could ride it.
Oh yeah. It's so funny because I remember that was on the cover of the show, and it was like in the winter down in Anaheim, and it was on we shot a photo of it on the cover of Long Beach show. Yeah, you're right. On the cover of Mountain Bike Action, and I think about it now, it's like even when like late 100 years ago, I'll be looking. We hardly shot any photos of it. I mean, like there's this one photo on the cover of and then Rob Metzger's sitting there like kind of like looking at it, but it just seems like to me, I'm like, how do we miss that? Like the bigger story of what that thing was at the time, because then but within 10 years,
Dude,
we'd be
there were
pouring over
so many cool anodized 3D violet parts that you guys had to photograph, and I totally get it. That was just like.
I mean, honestly, it's amazing to think of that bike. Again, all these things that predate, what Jim did with e-bikes and stuff, just predating so much stuff in Calfee with carbon, so much, because that didn't show up till many years later,
But it did make an impression.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at it now, I'm just like, God, I don't know. It was an amazing bike, and anyways, I won't get to that. It's a whole other aside on the suspension. But so you do that, and then you're still becoming popular for the steel frames. This great photo, of course, and the mansion that you lived in back there, well kept.
It really was my garage, but we did move things around a little bit for the photo.
And I just remember, back then, I mean, we used to just like the world of bicycles, bike dorks, bike geeks, whatever, we used to like the whole thing about even like your gussets was like a big talking point, it's like, I mean, like the smallest, silliest
Details
things.
mattered.
Yeah. And I mean, you created this whole legacy, because then we talked about it before, like, there was like, oh yeah, well, my Bontrager's a pre-Wisconsin Bontrager. Oh yeah, well, your Bontrager's not as good as my Bontrager, And it's just like we fall into these traps of like, crosstalk, not your crosstalk, Andrew, but just crosstalk. But you made the point. It's like once Trek did buy you, purchase it, and the frames actually became smarter, a little bit better built, maybe, and the fact that some of the same hands that made these bikes in Santa Cruz were making them in Wisconsin. Yeah. But steel is real. I mean, that whole thing. He rolls his eyes. There's still people who it's like that thing, and.
I didn't realize at the time that would become a brand identity that would be difficult to shake, because I sort of considered myself a physicist engineer, and I could come to understand other materials and work with other materials. We made titanium stuff, we made aluminum frames, but that once you get locked into that identity, it's hard to shake. So, and in the end, it didn't matter that much. I think we wrote it out as well as we could, and the time we'd put into steel bikes wasn't a waste. They ended up being pretty good bikes from all that.
Yeah, strong like cheap, right? It became like the maxim for Bontrager.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that was about? And
it just at the time, this was the first.
Strong like cheap, choose two.
Pick two.
That was
at the time the trend in mountain bikes was to make lighter and lighter bikes, and without any sort of technical discipline, you could make some really dangerous bicycles that way. The handlebars and stems were snapping pretty regularly, and that was the testing we did, mechanical testing we did, was basically pointed at that problem. It's like this is a test that can duplicate a failure that we see pretty regularly on handlebars, and we can design a part that will last 10 times longer or whatever. And the quip, the saying, was sort of to summarize that. You can have two of those three things, but you can't have three of those all at once.
Yeah.
Carbon kind of changed that actually, but
yeah. And then so steel bikes. I was sort of waiting for that photo, but so we're lucky to have Paul Willerton here, who as I was reading, him going going over your compact road frame. Is that right?
Yeah.
So this is the compact road frame. Can you just tell us a little bit in terms about that, what it was to you at the time, and
Well, we took everything we learned from mountain
what
bikes.
year was that? Paul.
90s, early 90s.
Prototype 94. It was on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah. We took what we knew about assembling lightweight mountain bikes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and we threw out all the religion about how bike components should fit in the frame. At the time, as a custom builder, you were constrained on seat posts by what was available, and what was available were 150 millimeter long
Yeah.
forged campy seat posts or replicas, and so that meant that the shape of the frame had to put the seat clamp in a place where that seat post could get the saddle to where it needed to go. And that's why frames were shaped more or less the way they were. And if you use a mountain bike seat post in the frame, you could change that. So that meant you could do what Lance referred to as a girl's bike. You know, you could have the sloping top tube and make the frame much lighter, and the seat post actually worked better when it was longer and it could flex around a little bit. So that's what we did.
And Willerton, you said something about the frame that you liked it a little bit.
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I had ridden, Calfees with Zed in '91, and then Merlin's, and then when I, went with Keith, he passed on what I think was a prototype. But anyway, right away I could just feel. I mean, again, for a steel bike, not to pigeonhole it into the steel thing, but for a steel bike, it was world class. It was better in every regard. I felt like uphill, downhill. Yeah. There's another group that I brought that up. Shane and I were staying at the Flandrian Hotel in Belgium, and Jamie Anderson has the first Giant TCR. So Giant really gets credit for that. It's a big thing in Europe, the introduction of the compact frame. And I raised my hand. I was going, well, that's actually, Keith predated that by years.
Yeah.
That actually everybody who was building a mountain bike frame was figured it out. It was just that Giant decided to sell it to the race team.
And then also there's another photo. Will come up here, but again, it's Paul Willerton here in the crowd. But it'll be a picture of him. So it was the year you were racing the mountain bike for what year? '94.
Yeah, Keith was the only one that gave me a chance that year. Keith and Hans Heim at Bontrager. But I've been hanging out at Keith's shop and everything for
Right here.
years already. Yeah, for years before then.
And so by then, there was still like aluminum bikes were still coming along, and you're on a steel bike to a degree.
Yeah, I think Trek even had, or there were some carbon bikes
Yeah.
beginning to come in.
OCLV coming in.
I was
Yeah.
like the last guy on steel. And then years later, I went back with Keith in '97, still on a steel bike after the Trek move.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So full circle then, as all starts again tying all these things together, brings us back to you have this composite fork, Jim Turner motocross, and then Jim Turner again in the sense that now you're working on this e-bike. And I've been just watching on social, you've been doing this mapping quest all through Santa Cruz, I don't quite understand it.
Two different things.
Yeah, so because I don't want to talk about that. Because I couldn't figure out, I'm like, what the hell is he doing now? But so tell us just about, in terms of where you are with this e-bike thing and what it means to you now.
Well, it's not an e-bike,
Okay.
and it's not a motorcycle, though it could be a motorcycle. It's an electric moped from a legal point of view.
No pedals.
Well, it's not a moped because there's no pedals, because mopeds have
Okay,
pedals.
Yeah.
But they don't legally. In California, you can make a bike that has under 4 horsepower that goes no more than 30 miles an hour. It has to have a license plate on it. It has to be registered. You have to wear a motorcycle helmet and have a motorcycle license to ride it. And it's a legal vehicle at that point. It has to have insurance.
So just real quickly, how how does that differ from what you were saying about how you couldn't do a e-bike with the license plate because of all those regulations and stuff? Is there some other, you found some little caveat there?
Because they're both that, right?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So the quick and dirty version of it is I got a motor, put it on, or a hub drive motor, inexpensive, has all the problems that Jim talked about. Put it on a privateer mountain bike, rode it around town. Like, this thing hauls ass around town.
Yeah.
Not a good idea to put it on a 30-year-old mountain bike designed for single track though, because it's not very stable. That was a 1500 watt hub drive. That's half the legal power limit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it went on without any modifications or anything. It went over 30, so it could go faster than it was supposed to go. This one goes 50, but it's not limited. I can slow it down with the controller. The next one's going to go 30% faster yet. That will also be slowed down. These aren't, I'm not building these things to do the speed run,
Yeah.
but it's just the quickest way around town. It weighs a little bit more than a standard e-bike. It accelerates really fast. It costs nothing to operate, and it's a relatively small battery. And it's built with more or less bicycle components. And this is just proof of concept. It's not a business. It's just a way for me to get around. I'm sharing the information with anybody who wants it. There's guys who know. I mean, I've had to come up to speed on electronics in order to do the 12 volt step down circuit to drive the lights. But the thing really is a blast to ride around town. And the videos are basically showing people how to ride around town without getting killed by cars.
Yeah.
So low stress streets, find ways to ride around on your bike or your e-bike or this thing, but stay away from the worst of the car door alleys or the worst of the skinny streets in Santa Cruz.
Yeah. Another part of the continuum that, again, I keep going back to that brought this all together was, for Rick and I, and it's part, with the lighthouse and stuff, is the idea of what Santa Cruz begat, right? And so just for the sake of it, I mean, I asked Jim this question too, but I mean, it's like, what was it about? Was there anything in particular about Santa Cruz that, that?
Well, the university got me there, but the trails kept me there.
Yeah. Yeah, good trail system. So you've done these simple bikes, and now this, just for the sake of it, and comes going back to like my question, like what is it about the bicycle? And like for you, what is it about the bicycle? And is there where is it going to go or be?
I don't know. It's like everybody else has said, simplest, most efficient, most fun.
Yeah.
No, there's no traffic in the bike lane. You get stuck in traffic in your car.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a one in particular moment of something you've done and created that stands out in the annals of Bontrager file history?
I like winning races. I got a chance to win a few. I like working on things that won races.
Yeah. Nice.
It's nice when you've got an idea and, like Jim said, it turns out right.
Where'd you grow up?
Santa Clara in Hawaii. I saw my first motocross race in Hawaii, in Kaneohe, in 1970, I think. I saw John DeSoto and Bob Grossi get their ass kicked by the Belgians.
On that note, any questions for Keith Bontrager, everybody?
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of joining Trek? Was that a matter of business survival or opportunity to grow, or what was that?
It was, let's see, I had been running the company for a long time. There'd been a few points where I'm not sure that I can do this anymore, never had any money, never made any money at it. I know people laugh, but that's really true. You take a vow of poverty if you're going to become a frame builder, and it's hard to get out of that. Hans Heim came along, who was now part of Ibis Cycles. He became a partner. He's a smart business guy, good cyclist. We worked together, built it up. Still didn't have any money, but it had some inertia in the business, and actually had a little bit more of the sort of normal business infrastructure. You know, had people doing the books and had salespeople and marketing people. Not much, but a little. He left, went to Santa Cruz, and so I ended up running the place badly for a few years, and that was really hard, like 80-hour weeks, and I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. And I got a call from John Burke, said, "We're interested in buying your company." And took about a month to do the deal.
Was it important for you to continue on and work on components and things like that?
It was, part of the deal was that they would hire me to do design work for them. And I don't think that went exactly the way they had hoped it would, but because I'm more of a scientist engineer than a designer. But it worked out in each, as things morphed along. I think I ended up being pretty valuable to them. And they were, I got paid for the first time for a long time. So that was important. At the time, they invested about $1 million in the factory. They weren't going to shut the place down. We moved the people that were involved in manufacturing had a ton of support. We were making frames better at that time than we ever had been before that. And there was just sort of an economic catastrophe that forced them to close the place. And then from then on, I actually had income and was free to do a lot more of the things that I wanted to do, including ride my bike a lot more.
Did a lot of the products with your name on it have your input or approval?
No, at some point that was clearly not happening anymore. The things that I was good at, bars, stems, and wheels, were things that I spent a lot of time on.
Anyone else?
So we tend to focus on what we can see, which is product, and this is kind of for all of you guys. But to some degree, you've all built companies or brands or both.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you learned and how your business evolved by process? Like, you started just building frames, but eventually you had a company. You, in my mind, kind of pioneered actual product testing for a lot of stuff. How did process drive product? Like, how did you go from just making something to process and that cycle?
It is to some extent. I didn't have any background in business, and the background that I had from the motocross days with Fox was just developing things. You get an idea, and you turn it into hardware, and then improve it. And I think the frustration in being in the business at that time was all the discipline required to operate a business was like out of my league. I just didn't want any part of it. And so whatever we did with the brand was basically just cooking up better parts, or trying to cook up better parts, and then kind of let everything flow from that. Zap at one point kind of surprised me with some sort of a punk rock music industry analysis of my sale to Trek. And that surprised me to some extent. And then what happened in some respects with the being a sellout, after that surprised me too. And I had no real feeling for any of that at the time. I mean, I understand it a lot better now. But it was just like, I'd never thought of the world in those terms before. And so the brand was formed entirely from my point of view as the development of better parts, strong, light, cheap. This is what we do.
Just real quickly, what he referred to is I sent him a fax, and it said, "Congratulations, you fucking corporate sellout." No, it said from one to another, because I just gone from Mountain Bike Action to Rodale at Bicycling Mountain Bike Magazine. So we were like the same time, because people were saying, fucking Zap went to Rodale, blah blah. And I see this Bontrager, and I'm like, oh, sweet, I can say it. And honestly, I
still have the facts.
and he sent that to me, and I posted on Instagram like 6 months ago, and it's like of all my Instagram posts, it's like it's like 3,000 for the set. I do a bitchin' picture of DeCosta or something, get something. The number one like with a rocket was that people viewing that fax that I sent him. So I mean, yeah.
Well, at that time, for those of us around at that time, you sold, Paul sold Rock Shocks, Jim sold Chico.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these companies
We're flipping.
from Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I should add something. We did. I have pictures of that party. The Slow Gherkin played that party.
I saw Zach yesterday. They just toured here.
Really? Well, the one of the guys that I brought in to help me run the business, who actually did have some business background, said, when I asked him about the deal with Trek, he said, the industry's going through what's called a consolidation phase. And he said, so you think your competitors are Ritchie and Salsa or whatever. Think of what that's going to be like if those guys get bought and have a marketing budget that's like 100 times what it is now. Can you compete? And there was no way. I mean, I didn't know how to do that at the time. I'd never really even considered it. But imagining those guys becoming much more organized and much slicker and much better at what they're doing meant that we were just going to get blown away. So better to be in that game.
Are there any questions from afar? All good? Okay, KB, thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Thank you.